up, middle school? Michael here. So when I was in middle school, there's a lot I didn't like about school. There's a lot that I would have changed if I could. But by far, at the top of that list was homework. I always thought it was crazy that we would need to do school and then go home and start doing school again on my own time without a teacher here. And look, this has been explained to me. Teachers have told me this is why we have homework. It's good for you. There's psychology studies that show it's good for you. Don't care. Doesn't make sense. I never understood it. And what made it even more frustrating is that every year I would have at least one class that I wouldn't end up ever having to take anything home for. They would give us our assignments within the last 15 or so minutes of class, and if I got right to work on it, I could get it all done. And so I thought, why can't we all just change what we're doing a little bit so I can do all my work here at school? Because what's going to happen if you tell me I have to do it at home is it's probably just not getting done. I'm probably going to do what I can do at school and then get zeros on the rest of it. Why can't we just make this one little change? It would make my life so much better. There are lots of things in the world we all wish that we can change. And some of them are like this, little things that are just kind of more irritating than anything else, right? But there's also real big changes, real positive change that we'd all love to see in the world. Last week, we talked about one big way that followers of Jesus went about making differences in the world, the way that they initiated change, and that was through serving. And hopefully you found some small ways over this last week that you've noticed you can start serving other people in your life. But the movement we're choosing to join as followers of Jesus, it's a bit bigger than that. It's more than trying to do nice things and that being part of our sort of regular day-to-day life. Our job as followers of Jesus is to represent him to the world that doesn't know him. They learn about him through us. And so we are told to tell our stories about what Jesus means to us to the people that we meet that don't know him the way that we do. We're told to be fighting for justice everywhere that we see injustice happening, because that's what he did. And we're supposed to expect unexplainable and miraculous things to be happening that change people's lives. And that's supposed to be a part of each one of our stories. But maybe you think about some of these things and think, well, look, that's amazing and it's awesome for the people that have stories like that, but that's just not me. There are a few people in the world that end up involved in big and revolutionary things. People like ministries and activists, people like that, special, unique people. But most Christians are just, normal, aren't they? And I feel like I'm one of those people. I'm just normal. It can be really hard to believe that God would use you specifically, this middle schooler listening to me say this right now, to do incredible things that change people and change the world around them in big ways. Because you're just one person, right? You've got your own faults and your own weaknesses and things you're just not capable of on your own. And maybe it seems like it takes something special, something uncommon to make a big difference. And so today, we're going to see what the Bible has to say about that idea specifically. And I think the best place to start is with the 12 disciples of Jesus. These are the guys that were basically like his best friends when he was actually alive on earth. And they were the guys that set off an entire global movement that spread Christianity all over the place. So we should see what they were really like and why was it that such incredible and miraculous things happened in their stories. As a kid, I had some assumptions about these guys because of what they did and because of the things that happened in their lives. I assumed that they were not exactly normal people. I assumed I didn't have much in common with these guys. First, I assumed that they had this perfect and unshakable faith. I thought, look, I'm a person that feels doubt sometimes. I'm a person who, I have faith in Jesus, but sometimes it's difficult to trust in every single thing that I read in my Bible. And I assume, well, they probably don't deal with that, right? Look at everything that they've done. But it turns out that that's not true at all. See, after Jesus was resurrected, the first person he visited was this person named Mary Magdalene, and we see a story about what this interaction was and how the disciples responded. In Mark chapter 16, it says this: "She went and told those who had been with him as they mourned and wept. But when they heard that he was alive and had been seen by her, they would not believe it." Now, we need to understand that the disciples were told very clearly by Jesus that he was going to die and be resurrected. You would assume, right, that they're going to believe everything that Jesus said. I mean, they were the 12 closest people to him. But this story shows us that they had some doubts. They got to live life with Jesus side by side, but they still struggled to always trust in every single thing he said. Their faith was a lot more similar to mine than I assumed. Then I also thought that, look, these are probably the kind of guys that always did everything right? They're like the most responsible people, and they were really good at doing what they were told and making the right decisions. Well, it turns out that's not really true either. Several times in the Gospels, we see Jesus correcting the thoughts and the actions of these guys. And I think one of the best examples we see in John 18. It says this: "Now Simon Peter, he was standing and warming himself, and this group of people, they said to him, 'You also are not one of the disciples, are you?' And he denied it, and he said, 'I am not.'" See, he had a conversation with Jesus a short while before this, and Jesus was saying, "You're going to not deny me in front of people." And he said, no. He swore to him, "I would never do that. I'm proud to be a follower of you, Jesus, and I'm not afraid of other people. Why would I lie?" And that same time, when the opportunity presented itself, he did completely the wrong thing. He lied to people and didn't want them to know that he was a true follower of Jesus. They made mistakes. They made big mistakes. And I also thought, look, maybe these are the guys that have a really good understanding of the Bible. They know their Old Testament scriptures real well, and so it was easy to trust in the things Jesus said because of how much they knew. Well, it turns out most of the disciples that Jesus called, they were people like fishermen, and they had other kind of regular jobs. At the time, if you were a really good scholar of the Bible, there were lots of like actual jobs you could get for knowing the scriptures super well. And this was not them. There were other people in their own towns that knew what was written about God even better than these guys did. So, what was really so special about these guys? What enabled them to go off after Jesus was gone and change entire societies? Nothing. There was nothing special about them, nothing that separated them so significantly from you or me or anyone else. They were regular guys with regular people problems. And yet, the last thing that Jesus says to them, we see in Matthew 28. He said this: "And he came and said to them, 'All authority in heaven is given to me. Go, therefore, and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age.'" Now, this is a really big order that Jesus gives them. He tells his followers that it is now their job to go out into places that they've never been, places where they're not really even welcome, literally everywhere in the world, so that they can tell the story of the Jesus that they come to know in their own lives with those people that didn't get a chance to meet him for themselves. That sounds like really scary. Like, at least for me, I hate talking to anyone I don't know about anything. If I were to ever get lost in public and I couldn't call Tori on my phone, like, that's it. I'm just gone forever. I'm lost. Because there's no way I'm going to start talking to strangers to figure out how to get myself home. It's not happening. This is so much more extreme than even that is. Remember, these guys, they weren't even safe in their own homes, in their own country. The government was afraid of this Jesus movement, and so choosing to follow Jesus' instructions, it actually put them in some real danger. These guys were regular people, just like us. So they must have wondered, is it really worth it to do all that? What if it doesn't even make a difference? I mean, there are all these people that have actually seen Jesus for themselves, and they don't all believe in him. And so how much of an impact can we really make? But still, Jesus called them to go and to do it. He knew that they would be scared. He knew that it would be difficult for them, and he was completely aware of all of their weaknesses and all of their shortcomings. He didn't need them to be anything that they weren't. He just needed them to obey. When we read about the ministry of these disciples, we see them doing things that can only be explained by the supernatural presence of God himself. And of course, they cared a lot about growing their faith, growing their understanding of God's word as they moved along, and becoming more and more like Jesus every day. But that process, it wasn't done before they started changing the world. It happened while they were doing it. All of the power, all of the real change, it comes from God himself. He simply asks us to go and to be in places where we can be used by him to draw new people to him. That's what following Jesus means. It means choosing to do what Jesus did. Jesus was about serving the people around us that are in need. He was about speaking up when we see injustice happening right in front of us. He was about sharing good news of Jesus and his salvation that he offers to the world. He was about loving other people even when no one else would. And sometimes doing all of this, it means doing things that we're afraid of. It's not about learning to be brave. It's not about mustering up some feelings that we can just do anything that we don't have right now. It's about trusting that Jesus was telling the truth when he said that when we set out to do what he asked us to do, he is with us always. Jesus closed his instructions in that passage from Matthew by saying, "Be sure of all of this. I am with you always, even to the ends of the age." And so it's okay if you're afraid to embarrass yourself by trying to do and say things that no one else does. It's okay if you can't see exactly how anything that you could do would make a real difference. And it's okay if you don't feel like you understand enough about Jesus to teach others who he is. Everyone that's ever chosen to follow Jesus has felt all of these things, but no fear and no doubt and none of our shortcomings are too big for God. He can use anyone he wants to do anything he wants to change people's lives. And so, if you want to be a part of the movement that Jesus commanded his followers to join, start with this. Name the thing that you're scared to do, whether that's talking to specific people that you know, that you might have an opportunity to share with about what Jesus means to you and what he's done in your life, or the causes that you care about, but they feel too big for any of your actions to really do anything about. Whatever it is that you feel is too big or too scary, name that thing, and then simply ask God for the courage to do it. The true power is always in simply giving God control. He knows us. He knows what our limits are, and he knows that we're not perfect. He doesn't ask us to be anything different. He simply asks us to believe that he's with us and to do what he's asked. Trust that he will be in control. So, as you leave today, just think about this. When it comes to serving, what's one thing that you are scared to do? I'm so glad you guys chose to join us this morning. I love you all, and I miss you. We'll see you next week.